Welcome in, everybody, to another week of XFL Weekly. Few days late this week, but as mostly everybody knows, life kind of gets in the way. But Zach, we're here, week one this weekend. Well, what are your thoughts? How are you, man?
Oh, I'm doing good, and of course, a couple days late, but couldn't miss a week. XFL Weekly, we got to live up to the name. If we would have missed a couple of days here, we would have had to been XFL bi-weekly or something like
Oh man.
that. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this week's games. It's kind of crazy to say this week and really mean it. I mean, we are 2 days away from our first XFL action, and I believe. I think 3 o'clock is the first game, so it's nice, right smack in the middle of your Saturday afternoon. I'm excited. Can't wait.
Three o'clock Eastern on a lovely Saturday in middle of February. That's going to be a nice change of pace than we're used to, at least compared to a few years ago. Uh, so yeah, kickoff 3 p.m. week one, Saturday, February 18th, and then we got a night game at 8:30, and then we do it all over again on Sunday.
Beautiful.
No
Kyle, I
complaints
think
here.
it's a good way to kind of cure that Super Bowl hangover. We said that a little bit, and you know, I I hate to say it, but I think that Super Bowl left me wanting a little bit more NFL action. It really kind of, we were building, well, not even NFL, football action. We were building, 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 and then that holding call at the end of the game, controversial one way or the other, but that really just kind of took the air out of the balloon. So I'm looking forward to getting some more football action in, and I'm fired up to see the XFL and all its weird and wacky quirks. It's going to be fun.
And let me tell you, and we both know, but to the listeners tuning in, the XFL is full of its quirks, and
Hmm.
w- we're excited, full of wonder that this league is going to bring. Uh, but before we get into what we're doing this week, we are XFL Weekly. Just the two of us chatting. I'm Kyle Krajewski, joined by my good friend Zach Cole. Forgot to introduce ourselves. And we are here just to chat anything and everything XFL Weekly. Uh, Coming at you every week. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at XFL_weekly. If you're tuning in audio wise, you could find us a video version of this podcast on YouTube at XFL Weekly. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can find us in audio format. Just search XFL Weekly and you can find us. Uh, and this week, we're doing an XFL Week 1 preview, chatting about some matchups, what we're looking to see, kind of the four games that we're going to watch this weekend. And just looking at the betting odds, the favorites, we're going to go through our own pick 'em, and then we're going to call our shots on who we think is going to win the league before seeing any XFL action. And that's the beauty of it.
Hmm.
So let's get into it. Week one of the XFL season, version 3 in 2023, kicks us off with the Vegas Vipers versus the Arlington Renegades. Currently sitting at a 3 point spread in the favor of Arlington. Over under set at 37. And again, Arlington's the favorites. You, I, I wanted to say Drew Plitt officially named the starting quarterback for the Renegades, and the Vipers have announced Luis Perez as their starting quarterback. So
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, and even before we get into this, Kyle, let me just we'll kind of talk about. I think the best way to kind of give some context. It's a brand new league. No one really has any idea of what's going on with the teams or even who the starters are at this point. So really quick, I'm just going to run through the team future bets. What the sports books have the projected order of finish in, and of course, that's not the end all be all, but that it at least gives us some idea of kind of what Vegas thinks the pecking order is going to be. So real quick, I'm going to run through that. They currently have projected at 450 plus 450 to win the league is the Battlehawks, followed by the Defenders, and the Sea Dragons and the Renegades, all tied at plus 500. So do with that information what you will. Then followed behind them is another group of three: the Vipers, the Roughnecks, and the Brahmas, and then pretty comfortable last place projection is the Orlando Guardians, who are projected at a plus 950 odds to win the league. So just kind of like I said, just to kind of give some context into how the league is kind of projected to shape up. Now, like I said, does that mean that that's how it's going to actually happen? No, not at all. But at least that kind of tells us that the Battlehawks should be on the higher end of the scale, and maybe the Guardians will be on the lower end of the scale. So, we can project accordingly. But with this first game you talked about, the Vipers and the Renegades here. I think that the interesting thing to me is the over under on this game, which if you kind of break it down to an implied over under, we're looking at roughly I would say probably a 20-17 score in this game is what Vegas is kind of thinking with the spread and with the over under. So I think. I think that's pretty spot on. You mentioned Plitt and I don't want to get it wrong. Perez, is that correct? Is that who the
Yes. Yep.
okay? Yeah, Plitt and Perez. It's gonna be a good opening game, and it'll kind of give us a good look at where these teams slot in, and I don't really have a whole lot to add other than it's going to give us kind of an idea of what each of these teams is about. And I think that's what week one is going to be special, is because we've never seen any of these teams perform before. So I'm really looking forward to just seeing them come out. And I think a 3-point spread, even though that's it's tied for the biggest spread of the weekend, I don't think that necessarily does justice to what kind of game we're going to see, as it is the highest over under total on the weekend. So I expect a good game. I expect some scoring to happen, some fireworks in this game.
Yeah, and I mean the highest over under, and I think that's just because I just looking at some random numbers here, and I think that's primarily because the two teams kind of have the weaker defenses.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know. Who knows? Again, we're going to see a whole different. We're going to see brand spanking new teams going out there, lining up, playing some football. And who knows? These games could go any which way, and that's the beauty of it all.
Well, and with this game too, Kyle, I think that there's a lot of familiar faces in it, and I think that's why people are
Yeah,
kind of expecting it to be a good game. It's Coach Bob Stoops against Coach Rod Woodson, two very intelligent football minds. And there's also names in here. I mentioned last week in our episode that I'm excited for Sal Cannella, who is the tight end for
yeah.
the Renegades. And there's also on the other side, you're going to see guys like Geronimo Allison and Martavis Bryant, who are former NFL players. So there's a lot of potential firepower in this game. So it's going to be an exciting one.
Oh yeah, and something to note: I think Martavis Bryant was on the injury report this week, so I think it's
Mm,
still questionable as to whether we'll see him this week.
interesting.
But either way, best wishes to him. Hopefully, he gets healthy to play some extra football.
Definitely.
But then, all right, let's move on to matchup number two, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Saturday night. Orlando Guardians versus the Houston Roughnecks. This is a team moving down to Orlando from New York versus the previous best team in the XFL in 2020. And the over under kind of shows, or the spread does. Roughnecks are favored -3. Over under set at 35.5, and money line goes into the Roughnecks favor.
Well, and Kyle, like we mentioned, the Guardians are projected to be the worst team in the league. So there's no real surprise there. But I think part of that has to do with the uncertainty surrounding this team. They have a packed quarterback room. We've talked about it before. They have DeAndre Francois, Quentin Dormady. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies if I'm not. And Paxton Lynch, who's a former NFL player as well. So I think that there's a lot of built-in uncertainty, and unfortunately, with uncertainty comes not great odds. So I think
Yeah.
that's why we see this big of a spread as it is.
Something to note as well. Depth charts were released, I think, just earlier today. So we've got Paxton Lynch starting for the Guardians versus Brandon Silvers of the Roughnecks
Beautiful.
facing off. Paxton Lynch, lovely Broncos player, and
Yeah.
several other
Remember that
NFL
experiment.
journeymen.
Yeah. Well, and I
Uh,
think, Kyle, I think going off of the former rendition of the XFL, we saw the Roughnecks just completely dominate. They were 5-0. So I think that there might be a little bit of a recency bias with that too. People are just expecting, and I know they're completely new teams, and I get it, but year in and year out, if you see to relate it to a different sport, Kentucky basketball is number one. You expect them to maybe open up the season as number one next year, even though it's a whole new group of players. So
yeah,
um, I think that the Roughnecks are just kind of getting some of that recency bias, like I said, at 5-0, and not to mention they have Wade Phillips, who's
yeah.
a very intelligent football mind. So even if that there's some jitters week one and there's some issues, you can expect Phillips to come out and to at least put on a very well coached game.
Yep, and I'm just looking at projections. It looks like running back for the Guardians, Jermaine Martin, may be the best running back if you're into some DFS. The highest projected running back on this weekend, at least. So that's something I think this is going to be a run focus game for Orlando, facing a team that may try to throw a little bit more. It seems.
I'm excited.
Oh yeah, especially with your favorite. You mentioned Charleston Rambo
Yeah,
on
I
our
did.
previous
Yes.
show.
Yeah,
The
I'm
lovely.
excited. I want to see what the Guardians have. Maybe I'm planting my flag right now.
I
They
was
could
gonna
be.
say, is this it?
This sounds like it, but I don't know. I'm holding out still.
Still
Let me give
waiting.
me
Still
give me a
waiting.
week under my belt. Let me see if there's anyone I can't resist, and then
You'll
we'll
you'll
reevaluate.
go through week one, and you'll finally be like, I like the way that guy throws, and it winds up being Jack Cohen of the Brahmas. Speaking of Jack Cohen, next game up, game three is at 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday between the St. Louis Battlehawks and the San Antonio Brahmas. Battlehawks have a -2.5 spread favorite in their favor. Over under set at 36.5. Battlehawks are going into this game starting. We all know him, AJ McCarron,
hmm
and the Brahmas are going into this one starting Jack Cohen. Uh, what are your initial thoughts here?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. AJ McCarron is my deciding factor in this. I mean, that guy was poised for a few years as the Alabama quarterback. He started a bunch of NFL games with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think he's just got the pedigree, the what's the word I'm looking for? The I guess poise again. He's just really kind of a complete quarterback, and I think that that's kind of what's leading to the Battlehawks as being the favorite to win the XFL outright. So not just to mention on a week to week basis for this week, but overall in the season, the Battlehawks are their favorite. So I think they have to be the favorite in this game too.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a guy who was drafted into the NFL in 20. Am I seeing this correct? 2014.
Yeah, it sounds about
Um,
right. Yep.
yeah, 2014. He's kind of just been an NFL backup throughout his entire career, and then finds himself in a position to start for a football team.
hmm
Roughly 10 years after uh, leading Alabama to greatness. Um, I mean, it's crazy, and I think you're absolutely right, and that's where this kind of favoritism leans towards
hmm
is the experience at the quarterback position. Where I mean, all of these other guys are 1 or 2 year backups, or even just coming right out of college and getting their first shot in the XFL here. Which I mean, I love it all, and that's the kind of beauty of it, where a 23-year-old fresh out of college player can play
hmm
just as well, if not better, than the 10-year vet in AJ McCarron. And that's the big unknown of it all.
Definitely. Kyle, going into this game, two names I just really want to kind of throw out since we didn't have too much on the Brahmas here. I'll start with them. Kalen Balaj is probably going to be their starting running back going into this game, who really had a decent career in the NFL. And he's not even all that old. I want to say he got drafted maybe 5, 6 years ago. He just never really stuck around. So he's definitely someone to watch for the Brahmas. And on the other side, I talked about him when we went through our team by team breakdown. But Hakeem Butler is a wide receiver out of Iowa State. And I told you last time, Kyle, I swore up and down that guy was going to be the next Calvin Johnson. So he's a huge target for AJ McCarron to throw to. And maybe he finds his stride and reestablishes himself. So I'll definitely be watching out for those two.
Yeah, and kind of the huge X factor for the Brahmas is we have first time head coach Hines Ward. I
Mr.
mean,
Ward.
we're gonna we talked about him in a previous episode where fans are gonna kind of flock to the Brahmas for the black and gold,
Hmm.
for the Steelers kind of fan favorite in Hines Ward. And again, brand new head coach, hasn't had head coaching experience before, and I mean, I read an interview where he just kind of took the role because he realized he'd never have this opportunity again to be a head coach anywhere.
That's awesome.
So,
You gotta respect that. That's pretty cool.
so it's like one of those things where not only are the players getting huge opportunities, but so are these coaches. So you know that they're going to come out here and really show up, really show off what they can do, and that's kind of the beauty of the Brahmas, where they may have the second to worst best odds for the rest of the season. But I
Hmm.
mean, if there's any team that could kind of show up, it's any of them. But the Brahmas kind of have a lot of X factors to them that can show up for the whole XFL season.
Definitely, definitely. I'll take us home to our last game here.
Last game, and quite honestly, what I think is the game of the week. And I think this is why they have it as the Sunday night football game
Hmm.
between the Seattle Sea Dragons and the DC Defenders. We're seeing two teams that I think are two of the best teams in the league. The Seattle Sea Dragons come in with Ben DiNucci, Josh Gordon, and who's their head coach? I'm completely blanking on it right now.
Who
Um,
are we looking at? DC. I'm sorry. Give me one
no,
second.
Seattle.
Oh, Seattle. Let me come up with that for you.
I knew it too. All I know is he was getting head coaching looks he was getting coordinator looks for some
Jim
teams this
Haslett.
season. Yeah, I think Seattle's going to be a favorite in a lot of these games, but apparently they're playing a really good defenders team, and
Hmm.
that's not me being a homer. That's me looking at this lineup and saying Jordan Ta'amu and Abram Smith may be the best quarterback running back duo in this league,
Hmm.
and that is dangerous. And I think the defenders have one of the best defenses too. Just looking at some projections and such.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's see it Sunday night, week one. Put these two of your best teams on the stage, on the biggest stage, on Sunday Night Football, and I'm living for it. I'm excited.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that it's pretty cool that we have two of the top teams playing each other right off the bat in week one. You know, maybe if the Battlehawks are supposedly the number one over and away team, these two are probably 2 and 3 respectively. So, you know, it's cool to see these two battling it out right off the bat. You mentioned Teamu and Abram Smith, and that's going to be exciting on the Battlehawks side. I'm sorry, on the Defenders' offensive side. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you mentioned they also have one of the better defenses, and that's because they are led by Mr. Bountygate himself, Greg Williams. You know that he's definitely got some history going there, and not to mention he has another guy playing for him. Reggie Northrup is one of his linebackers, who's a pretty wild story. He's an older guy, but he's also an MMA fighter, and he played a little bit in the USFL, and actually is infamous for showing up to practice with a cig in his mouth, which is just the most badass thing ever. So, but you know, on the other side of the ball, I'm sure you mentioned Ben DiNucci, Josh Gordon. There's some firepower there, so this really could be a shootout, and we see that the line reflects that right now. It's just at 1 point. It's the Sea Dragons are, I'm sorry, the Defenders are favored by a point right now. So that's essentially a pick 'em in my eyes.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
was going to
fired up.
mention. Completely forgot about the lines here. Yeah, you mentioned it. It's a pick 'em. And even the money lines show it, where Sea Dragons are sitting at -105 and the Defenders at -115,
Hmm.
which unless it's at 110, that's as close to a pick 'em as it gets.
Exactly.
Which just kind of says Vegas, it's going to be a close game, and that's the beauty of a Week One Sunday Night Football game.
I love it. I think you summed it up perfectly. I don't really have anything more to add there.
All right, Zach, let's go through these four games. I just quick rapid fire. I want you to just tell me who's going to win, and which spread you're taking.
All right. Well, let's start off with the first game here. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the Vipers and the Renegades. Just to refresh everyone, the Renegades are 3-point favorites, so they are -3, and the over/under on this game is 37 points. So I think what I'm gonna go ahead and go with here is I'm gonna take the under on this game. That's gonna be my best bet in this game is I think 37 points in week one. The league's coming back. These guys might be a little rusty. I tend to lean towards the under here. And if I had to pick a spread, I think I'm gonna go with the Vipers +3. I think it's gonna be a close game. If it's gonna be that low scoring.
Beautiful. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take the over.
Okay.
Highest over under here on the board, and I think for multitude of reasons. And then give me screw it. Give me Renegades -3. I'm gonna go complete opposite.
That's all right. That's what we're here for. Good discussion, man. I like it.
All right. Take us home with the not take us home halfway through. Guardians versus Roughnecks.
All right.
Spreads at +3 -3 in favor of the Roughnecks. Over under 35.5.
All right. Well, looking at this one, I'm going to go over on this one. I think that being that the Guardians are probably the biggest wild card and the Roughnecks are supposedly one of the better teams in the league, and again the 5-0 from last time thing, I think that there's going to be some offensive firepower in this, and really just some uncertainty. I could see this ending up being a 42, 43 over under line more so than a 35.5. So it could get really pushed up, or we could just see a dud of a game and it could end up being 21 total points in the game or
Mhm.
22 total points in the game. So, I think that I'm going to lean more towards the over here, just kind of because of that uncertainty factor. And with that being said, I think I'm going to go with the safe bet. I'm going to go with the Roughnecks money line here, which is one -155. I know that's kind of a cop out, but I'm going to avoid the spread in a game where I just don't really think there's enough data or enough backing to make a what's the word I'm looking for, an educated guess on this one or an educated pick.
Yeah, I hate to be the agreeer, but I think I'm taking both as well. But I think instead of the money line, I'm gonna go Roughnecks -3. I'm
I
taking
like
it.
it. I like it. And if the I mean, we saw that in the futures odds, the Guardians were picked far and away to be the worst team in the league. So a 3-point spread probably isn't a bad spread if this is supposedly one of the top half teams versus with the worst team. Think a la the I don't know, maybe say the 49ers playing the I don't know. Give me a team that's relevant here. That fits the bill. The Texans, the
Yep.
Bears. It's a
Yep.
top half team playing a bottom half team. So I think
I
that's
think it's I think it's a little bit more middle ground. I'd probably say more let's say Lions versus the Lions Bears. Maybe not
okay.
like best of the best, and I guess Bears have the number one overall pick, but I'm trying to think of like a not worst team, but
Right. No, I
uh,
understand what you're
the
saying,
best.
but that's the kind of game that's going to end up somewhere being decided between 3, 6, 9, 10 points. It's not going to be a 41-17 game, but at the same time it's not going to be 17-16. It's not going to be
Yeah.
right there close
Yep.
neck and neck. I like it. Good comparison.
All right. Next game, bring us to Sunday. St. Louis Battlehawks versus the Brahmas. Once again, the spread is at -2.5 in the favor of the Battlehawks. Over under is 36.5.
All right. Well, here I'm going to go over again. I think that the Battlehawks have a lot of firepower on that offense. You kind of highlighted some of the names: Tayamu, Abram Smith, and I am actually going to take them on the spread as well, -2.5. And I think I feel good about that. I think that they got a couple guys that are veterans in these auxiliary football leagues, we'll call them, like the USFL, the AFL, those sort of things. So I think that they'll be able to kind of put away the Brahmas, and I think that they'll be able to maintain a pretty healthy lead on them.
I'm going to take the under. I think it's
Okay.
going to be a slightly closer game, but just fighting in the trenches in the teens.
Okay.
But I'm still going to take the Battlehawks -2.5.
Like it. I like it.
And then game of the week. At least my
Mhm.
declared game of the week. I don't know.
I'm with you.
You
I'm riding with you.
beautiful. Sea Dragons versus Defenders. Sea Dragons have the +1, or I guess Defenders have the -1. I don't know why I said the non-favorite there. Over under set at 36. And really the money line is a toss up.
I
What do you
am
got?
going to, you know what? I'm gonna take not one but two cop outs on this one. I am going to pass on the over under on this one because I really don't know what to expect. I don't know whether to expect a defensive slugfest or uh, an offensive slugfest. I guess just touchdown after touchdown. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass on that. I'll
You think
sit
it's
this
going to
one
hit the
out.
36? It's gonna be a a pass.
I do. I think it's gonna hit exactly. I'm going. I don't even know. I have to do the mental math on that one to figure out what the score. What my 20-16.
And
That's
it's
my prediction right
possible.
there.
Give me the with all the extra point options.
Yeah,
Any
right.
score is possible.
That's so cool too, and that really changed. I'm glad you brought that up because that changes spread betting. Like
Yeah.
a lot of times when I'll bet, I'll look at 6.5 spreads or 3.5 spreads or
Yeah, you want the
because
touchdown favorite or the
yeah.
field goal. You're like, "Oh, it's going to be a field goal."
Exactly, exactly. So,
It's
but
non-existent here.
this throws that out the window, and I think that's awesome. But my second cop out that I'm going to take here is I know that you are a Defenders fan, so I'm banking on you taking Defenders -1. I'm going Sea Dragons +1. I think that they are going to win this game outright, and that spread is just going to be the icing on top. So, give me the Sea Dragons +1.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go over cuz I
Okay.
want to see a lot of points in this game.
Is this like
Uh
a wish list bet?
this is a wish list bet. And I'm going to go Defenders -1. You called it. Uh, Defenders -1. I think Tom is going to lead this team to, let's say, a touchdown victory, which is going to wind up being a 3-point lead because I could
Right.
see the Sea Dragons going for 3 all the time.
Listen, perfect scenario. We're winding down on a Sunday night. We're getting ready to go into President's Day on Monday. I don't know. Do you have work on
Yeah,
Monday, Kyle?
I'm off. I'm off.
Oh yeah. Oh, beautiful. We're winding down. It's a tie game. No, you know what? We'll say it's a 7-point game, and we see them break out a 2-point conversion or an onside kick or something. Oh, it's gonna be great. I'm fired up.
They're gonna go for the 4th and 15. It's
Get the
just
ball
gonna
back.
it's
Oh, perfect. The
I
stars are
man,
aligning.
the stars are aligning for the week 1 XFL intro. Sunday night football. Everybody's got off the next day. They're all staying up, hype, watching this magical matchup between the Sea Dragons and the Defenders. And that's all it's going to be. I mean,
And Dwayne
these
the
should,
Rock Johnson walks out. He reenacts his Super Bowl, whatever the last Super Bowl thing with the mic and the red skinny jeans. Oh, perfect.
I've seen reports he's going to be in San Antonio earlier in the day. So unless he
Okay,
flies up, but either way, these are all being broadcast on ESPN, and we all know it's Disney. You know, Disney loves their magic, and they're pouring all their extra magic right into this game.
they're gonna debut their teleportation device and get him to all 4 games. It's gonna be incredible. This is it.
Wow. They said we're not spending this money on Pedro Pascal anymore. No more Mandalorian
Yeah,
money. This is
right.
all going right into
The
The Rock
XFL
being
baby.
at every XFL game
Oh, I
at
love it. I can't
once.
wait.
Who
I can't
knows?
wait. Oh,
Man,
jeez.
it's going to be exciting. Hey, we do know that the XFL is introducing new technology. Who's to say that that technology isn't teleportation?
That is true. That
Nobody
is
said
true.
anything about it.
I guess we'll just you have to tune in and see.
That's right, listener. Tune in and see. We're going to see The Rock in 4 places within 24 hours due to teleportation, not because he's fast.
Beautiful.
All right. So we're going to wrap it up there. That is week 1, and week 1 is still upon us. It's coming up. It is this weekend. And oh, man, thank you for tuning in. We're amped, and we're amped for you for joining us on this journey. Don't worry, we're not going away. We're going to see you right back here next week because that's what we do. We do this weekly. It's in the name.
Yeah. Yeah, Kyle, let me just jump in real quick. It's been
Please
really
do.
special to see that we've picked up some followers throughout the off season. I mean, no one's even thinking about XFL football until after that first week. So, we really appreciate everyone that's tuned in during this time, and we just hope to onward and upward continue doing what we love here, and we again appreciate everyone.
Yes, and again, XFL Weekly. Find us. Just search XFL Weekly. You can find us. And if you're not already, be sure to subscribe, like, follow, do all that cool stuff. It really helps us, and it's just lovely to see. Leave a comment, your thoughts, your feelings, how excited you are for Week 1.
Hmm.
If you didn't even know XFL was happening again, welcome back. And we're amped for you to be joining us on this journey. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you right back here next week.
See ya.
See ya.